always thought I could save the world. Now look at it.
In yet another augmented terror attack, 251 passengers aboard Sister Airlines Flight 451 were killed when an augmented passenger broke into the plane's cockpit and ruthlessly butchered its flight crew.
Sometimes, you just have to let go. And embrace what you've become.
Agent Jensen.
I won't let it happen again.
Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is a cyberpunk action stealth RPG developed by Ethos Montreal and published by Square Enix. It was released August 23, 2016 for the Xbox One, PS4, and PC as a sequel to the previous game, Deus Ex: Human Revolution. Mankind Divided is a worthy Deus Ex sequel that not only stays grounded in its identity as a Deus Ex game, but further expands on the core gameplay design that makes Deus Ex so memorable. Mankind Divided encourages player choice through the multitude of options revolving around stealth, exploration, and combat. While it may on the surface look just like Human Revolution, Mankind Divided overhauls many of its gameplay systems, making it feel and react way better than the previous game. Things like updates to the cover system, which allowed Jensen to sprint to another piece of cover with ease, makes the experience of control a way more fluid one. While there are a ton of different ways that you can play Deus Ex, stealth is as always the most rewarding. While all-out combat is satisfying and feels like a true firefight, it comes second to being able to take out an entire room of hostiles without anyone noticing. This time, however, Deus Ex doesn't punish you for choosing combat more, as the experience system can still give you bonuses for headshots and taking out hostiles with different weapons. On top of that, Mankind Divided has an updated weapons customization system and crafting system, allowing you to change your weapons components similar to Crysis when the situation demands it, as well as the ability to craft important items with a singular crafting material, which I appreciate, as it doesn't overcomplicate the system and makes it simple yet efficient. When it comes down to the standout feature of Adam Jensen, most of his augmentations have returned from Human Revolution, more refined. Not one augmentation is useless, and the ones that may at first seem lackluster to some of the more show-off types of augs, they're actually some of the best augs you can have as you progress through the game. Augs like remote hacking, being able to pick up heavier objects, and upgrading my security hacking became saving graces in many scenarios where it seemed like a shootout was the only way forward. This, along with brand new experimental augs like the non-lethal Tesla and Peps cannon to the crazy lethals like the Nano Blade and Titan armor, these new augs stand out from the current ones Adam got in Human Revolution and further spice up the gameplay. They do come at a price, however, as activating too many of them can cause Adam's systems to overload, so the player will have to balance these experimental augs to find that sweet spot for the best results. While I found the concept of overloading pretty cool, the consequences of overloading don't really live up to the name. At most, if you overload your systems, you deal with small UI HUD glitches where your ammo or health and other HUD details may become unreadable for a couple of seconds, and that's it. There's no reduction to health or lower movement or anything that really makes it hard to play while overloaded. It's really unfortunate that the devs didn't do more to this system, because it could have led to some crazy scenarios if overloading had caused your battery to drain randomly during a firefight, or an augmentation just didn't fire off right. It's just a small missed opportunity, but I wanted to point it out since the game makes a big deal out of it near the start of the game. This, on top of a brand new battery system, which prevents the overpowered exploit of eating energy bars from Human Revolution, will require you to think about when is the right time to use what augmentation. Another small issue I had as well was the lack of a dedicated melee button. While there is a takedown option which uses your battery to prevent spam, a lot of the time in the game I got killed while trying to run up on someone and backhand them with my pistol, as I've been used to being able to use that option in many other games, only to be shot full of lead or accidentally throwing a grenade. Overall, the gameplay of Mankind Divided is masterful, and it is improved in almost every department from the previous game. If you had any issue with the gameplay of Human Revolution, you may have a much better time with Mankind Divided. Also, as some advice, I would highly recommend, if you're competent at constantly thinking while you're playing a game, that I would recommend starting the game off on the hardest difficulty available for your first time, as it gives you a good balance of challenge and reward without you ever feeling like a demigod aug that the lower difficulties may give you. And good God almighty, the visual experience of Mankind Divided is a treat from a lot of other games in 2016. I did play this game on PC around a mix of high and ultra settings and was able to reach a stable 60 FPS most of the time at 1440p. Deus Ex this time around removes the gold and yellow filter that filled the previous game in favor of a more darker, realistic color scheme. While Mankind Divided may not have multiple city hubs like Hingsha and Detroit in Human Revolution, they decided to go for quality over quantity, and they made a truly magnificent artistic feat with the city of Prague. The art style and unique visual assets of the city alone weren't of a raise for the art team. Not one time during my time in Prague did I get bored of the city. With its multiple districts, each with its own visual architecture and multiple pathways, I was joyfully lost in the city for hours while being hit with flashbacks of memorable moments of Half-Life 2. The huge NPC count with their lively chatter and the movement of the police as they patrol the streets made the city feel alive and robust. I felt like I was truly living in a real world as a civilian where everyone and every action had purpose, from not only the people but the small apartments and businesses littered around the city. I hadn't felt that immersed in a game since The Witcher 3. While most of the time you travel the city during the day or night, Prague truly shows how masterful a piece of art it is during a mission where it rains. And it shows that out of everything I did in the game, those moments of moving around the city as a stealth agent, trying to break into a fortress while rain slid down Adam's augmentations were one of the most memorable times playing. While Prague is the main city hub where you'll be spending 75% of the game, there are other areas like London and Golem City where you'll be traveling as well. These areas stand out differently from Prague and still look visually stunning and unique, especially the cluttered-filled industrial slums of Golem City. The character models have also taken a turn for the better with incredible detail and amazing animation outside of the notorious lip syncing. It's way better than Human Revolution's lip syncing, but you can still see areas that need improvement. Some do believe that Ethos does this on purpose as a callback to the original games, as well as an Easter egg with the theme of transhumanism and everyone slowly turning into robots, but again, that's only a theory. And no, I'm not going to say it. While I didn't have a lot of performance issues that some have pointed out in articles and videos, I did notice an abnormal loading time when you first load up a save. It could be due to how big Prague is, but even still, for a game in 2016 and playing it on PC, the load times felt a tad unacceptable compared to the loading times of The Witcher 3's open world. So I spent a lot of time discussing the gameplay and the art of the world, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering about one of the biggest things currently being talked about with Mankind Divided, and that's its story. So this part's going to be a very, very opinionated part of my review that's very hard to explain without spoilers, so I'm going to do my best to stay away from them. Deus Ex Mankind Divided continues off of the events of Human Revolution. 2 years have passed since the AUG incident, which ended the previous game, and the world has changed for the worse. What was seen at the time as a new advancement and evolution of mankind has turned into a threat and a trigger for fear, racism, separatism, and radicalism. Laws have been put in place like the Taggart Act, placing heavy regulations on augmentations, pretty much killing the AUG market, and with that, Seraph Industries. Currently, the biggest issue you'll hear about is the new UN resolution called the Human Restoration Act, an act that, if passed, would require augmented people to have identity papers and other tools of tracking them. There's a lot of similarities you can find with this resolution to what Adolf Hitler did when identifying the Jews with a star. If the AUGs refused to comply, they would be thrown into a ghetto like Golem City, also very similar to what happened with the Jews' ghettos. As such, this only causes more tension with augmented terrorists going around blowing up population-dense locations. Discrimination is everywhere you look in Mankind Divided. Adam Jensen is now working for Interpol as a part of Task Force 29 to help investigate and find the terrorists responsible for the bombing of Prague. On top of that, Adam is also a double agent working with the ethical hacking group called the Juggernaut Collective, posed at exposing companies and people of influence who exploit the weak for their own benefit. After the events of Human Revolution, Adam is obsessed with finding and bringing the Illuminati to light, as he believes they are the reason the world is currently fucked up. While the main focus of the story, however, is on the rights collective called ARC, with their possible ties to terrorism, Adam is thrown into a dark reality where conspiracies are rampant even with Interpol, and the very people he's trying to help shun him away for being augmented. So there are a lot of things surrounding this story, and without spoiling it, there are two main points I need to make about this story. The first is that the game's story feels out of focus. Now, while I say this, I'm not saying that the entire game feels like this. While the gameplay is tuned perfectly throughout the game, I couldn't help but feel like certain narrative elements felt out of place or outright missing. For example, what I just explained to you about Adam joining the Juggernaut Collective is never shown in the game. The game acts as if you already knew this and introduces new characters as if you've already had a relationship with them, even though this is the first time you've ever met them as the player. While it's not impossible to piece together everything relatively early in the game, game, it still doesn't shake the feeling that something is missing from the narrative. The second point is the weird placement of certain tutorials like the weapon range, Seraph's important side quests regarding the origin of your experimental augs, and the pre-order bonus Jensen story that almost anyone who is woke to many of the practices of the current gaming industry can take a stab at what I'm insinuating. Now, I've had multiple conversations with some people who believe Mankind Divided has gone through exactly what the latest Metal Gear went through, but I can't say it's gone that far. Remember, Metal Gear 5 was incomplete not only from a story standpoint, but gameplay as well. And I wouldn't go as far to say that Mankind Divided has a huge loss of missing content that Metal Gear Solid 5 did. What I do believe is Square Enix is definitely behind this. What I feel here is the perfect example of the constant struggle and dissonance between publisher and developer. Square Enix, if you haven't been paying attention, has been on some Ubisoft levels of fuckery, so much so that I'm concerned about their future game projects coming into 2017. If you can recall, when Deus Ex was first revealed, they tried to implement that crazy pre-order Kickstarter campaign to get more people to pre-order the game for more cut-out pre-order content. That failed as the internet boycotted the hell out of it, and they decided to go back to just the regular pre-order format. Not only that, but you can recall, Square is also behind the decision to make Hitman go suddenly episodic, which also caused backlash from fans, and with the delays of Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3 seemingly always going dark for long periods of time, Rise of the Tomb Raider being filled with microtransactions and a timed exclusive with the Xbox One, and the news of Final Fantasy VII's remake going episodic as well, and I think we have a warrant to be concerned for the future of games going under the flagship of Square Enix. That is why I want to say here and now that everyone who is interested in the games that I just mentioned should be very concerned and pay attention to any news regarding their development. Since Square Enix has been so willing to try these unorthodox means of obtaining additional money off of their high-profile franchises, these games could be next on their chopping block. This is all, mind you, that Mankind Divided also has microtransactions with their Praxis kits. Now, there's an important note I need to tell you about this before everyone flips out and yells death to Mankind Divided. While the microtransactions are in the game, I need to be 100% honest with you, even as a crusader for a better gaming industry. Now, I've already done a full case study regarding microtransactions, which I highly recommend watching if you haven't, but the truth is, for Mankind Divided, I didn't even know there were microtransactions in the game. No joke. Through my entire playthrough, I never knew they were in the game, and I never bought them as well. I only found out about them when a friend asked me what I thought about it being in a single-player game, which I responded, "What?" As I've shown, the publisher definitely made the dev team put this in the game as a way to obtain more money, as well as their short-lived multiplayer leaderboard-focused breach mode as a means to get more money off of the game post-launch. The good news is, however, is that you can tell the developers did not like this, and they did their damn best to make sure it was as non-intrusive as possible, and for me at least, they succeeded. On top of that, I never noticed any part of the game where it caused me to grind for Praxis kits or any other currency endgame that you could pay with microtransactions, which show that the devs kept the game well intact as the microtransactions were an afterthought. While I still have heavy disdain for microtransactions and it will always be a negative for my review, I have to give some credence to the dev team for doing their best to hide it and not have it infect their game's design. Now, even with those two important points taken care of, oh dear God, there's still another point I need to make about this story. Now, this game does have, in my opinion, some unnecessary controversy regarding its usage of allegory with the usage of mechanical apartheid and AUG's Lives Matter. Now, I have to give credit to the dev team once again for sticking to their guns for tackling the topic of discrimination and making parallels of their fictional world and the real world is noble to say the least. There are some references used in the game that can be related to real-life examples, such as currently the Black Lives Matters movement, All Lives Matter, social justice and social justice belittlement, racism, separation, police brutality, and political manipulation. These topics are not easy to show, let alone discuss without someone feeling offended or upset that the game dared to pick either side in a fictional universe. I've read arguments saying that as a game, it should never make comparisons to real life due to the game setting being fictional, and others who got upset with no knowledge of the story who believe Mankind Divided was a piece of propaganda used to further justify one side or the other. So there's a couple things I want to say about this, which are tough as hell for me to say. So first off, if you don't know, I am in fact a young black male currently living in the United States of America. Yes, that same place that's currently going through a lot of difficult and complicated problems that are not as simple as many make them out to be. This fact alone may deter many of you to believe anything I'm about to say due to a stereotypical bias based on the color of my skin, or perhaps maybe not even that, but maybe something I've said in the past or retweeted on social media. With that in mind, I just wish to say that I have no affiliation, let alone any strong-willed affinity towards Black Lives Matters or any organization discrimination, pro or anti currently. I feel all sides of the problems we're currently facing have failed on fundamental ideas of organization, listening, and respectful discourse. Regardless of this, when I look at Mankind Divided, I can't help but feel like the game is not a piece of propaganda at all, and anyone who seriously refuses to buy or try this game based off of being triggered by phrases or similarities are being very close-minded. That being said, there are some points I wish to bring up to criticize their usage of racism in the game. First off, just off of my own personal experience dealing with racism in my own life, I never felt the weight of discrimination towards the Augs really affecting Adam Jensen. Unlike a lot of the Augs who are being brutalized or set up, Jensen never has to go through any of those issues for the most part. At most through my gameplay, Adam was really only stopped by the police at a checkpoint by the subway stations while entering a new part of Prague to show his papers. The only part where I truly felt the discrimination somewhat when I first took the train and I unknowingly went to the part of the train that was for naturals only, and I had a mom and a child look at me with judgmental eyes while I was minding my own business. I personally have had that experience before a couple of years back, but again, in the radical world Adam is in, when I got off the train, all I got was a simple slap on the wrist from the police. Now, somewhat I understand why this is due to the fact that Adam is in fact an Interpol agent, so the police would think twice of messing with him, but even still, Adam is never really beaten by any of the police like the other Augs, and the only exception to this really is a small section of the game where the city is put under martial law and Augs are shot on sight. This seemed to me more of the means to set up a stealth gameplay scenario rather than make a more meaningful political message. Does not try to shove your face in front of the discrimination and try to guilt trip you. It has moments where examples of discrimination are shown, but they're so far and small between and are never forced upon the player to take one side dictated by the writers. Choice still remains supreme even when it comes to a tough topic like this, so ultimately you can decide which side Adam takes or if he doesn't take a side at all. Outside of this, when you look at the story as a whole, it's decent overall. While some of the pacing is off due to my theories earlier, the story gets you from point A to point B and explains the gameplay. Where some may have an issue and be disappointed with the story may be the cliffhanger ending, but I believe that's due to the expectations they had going into the game. I definitely could go more in depth on this, but to explain it simply, I found talking with others that there were two main types of expectations going into this game. If you went into Mankind Divided expecting a singular, self-contained sequel telling another story of Adam Jensen, you may be disappointed by the cliffhanger and build up for what looks like the next Deus Ex game, or, let's hope to God it's not, DLC that's part of the season pass, which could contain what many people feel is missing. The other expectation is looking at this game as a sequel as part of a trilogy. I've found many parallels of how the story ends very similar to Mass Effect 2. While the whole game seems like a side story or a building platform for the third game, it sets up for a grand finale which, let us pray, ends up being better than how Mass Effect 3 ended up. After beating the game, I can say just for me, I took it as more as the second game of a trilogy, and I'm very excited to see how everything ends up in the next Deus Ex. I have heard some news that Mankind Divided's choices will carry over to the next Deus Ex, so it could be best to hold on to that save and see what happens. Like I said, this is only how I took it, so you may take it another way or feel disappointed about the story of the game, which I understand either way. At the end of the day, I do believe people are blowing a bit out of proportion how disappointing the story is as a whole, but that's honestly due to the caliber of storytelling that Deus Ex has set the bar on. While the other Deus Ex games have a very strong narrative, Mankind Divided just feels a tad beneath them, but it has a stronger, more masterful design of its gameplay mechanics in return. Even with these flaws, Mankind Divided is still worthy of the Deus Ex name, and doesn't stray away from what makes Deus Ex such a unique and enjoyable experience. The gameplay has been overhauled in almost every way that it feels refreshing from not only the previous game, but many other games this year. The game does in fact feel like a worthy sequel instead of a DLC upgrade. While the main story hosts the game's main faults, it still fulfills the main purpose most of the time, and the side quests are some of the most memorable experiences you'll have since The Witcher 3's. Overall, I highly recommend picking up Mankind Divided. Even with all of its issues with microtransactions and seemingly missing content, some way, somehow, the developers were able to deliver a strong, content-filled experience that lives up to the legacy of Deus Ex, something I thought would have been impossible with Square Enix infecting the game with its horrid business practices. If you still have doubts or don't wish to buy the game yet off of principle, you can still wait for a sale, but those who are seriously curious on picking up this game should pick it up right away.